Hi, everyone. I'm Don Cravins, Jr., Executive Director of the National Urban League's Washington Bureau, and this is your Washington Update. I hope you've had a great week. Wanted to just bring a couple of things to your attention before you go through the Washington Update and get all of the great news that we have to share with you. There was supposed to be a big speakers election this week, and it looks like there will be one, but it will not come along with the majority leader as well as a whip election. It looks like those elections are going to be postponed in the near future. So what do we have shaping up? Well, tomorrow, the Republican Conference, which is the leadership of the House Republican Party, is going to decide who is their nominee for the next Speaker of the House. And that nominee will be one of three people that we know of. It will either be Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Chavez, or Mr. Webster. Those are the three gentlemen who've expressed an interest in being the next Speaker of the House. And so on tomorrow, on Thursday, the conference is going to decide who that nominee will be. Once that nominee is decided, there will be an election on October 29th in which the entire House of Representatives will get a chance to vote for the next Speaker of the House. And whoever wins that election by the one vote, it's a simple majority, will be the next Speaker of the House. Right now, all indications seem to point to Representative McCarthy as being the next speaker, but who knows? Things are changing by the minute, by the day. And then we'll see if there'll be a race for the majority leader and the majority whip. Those are the two junior positions that come along with that. Those elections could happen on the 29th as well, or could happen at some other time. We'll just have to wait and see how those elections go. Want to also bring your attention to a study that was recently released by the Democratic side of the Joint Economic Committee. The Joint Economic Committee is a group of experts, economic experts in the United States Congress. Recently, the Democratic side of that committee released a report on the economic challenges facing African Americans. And many of those challenges you are very familiar with, but it's also good to see that not only are there a lot of challenges, but we are making some progress as well. And so what the study shows is that black unemployment, which is still twice as high as the national average, which is way too high, is starting to come down. And so that's positive indicators. So take a look at the study. It also shows just a significant employment gap that persists, as well as a wealth gap that persists. And so take a look at that. And while you're doing that, also take a look at our State of Black America for 2015, which you can find on our website. It also gives a great picture of where African Americans are in 2015, some of our challenges as well as some of our positives as well, and where we're making some ground and where we've got some ground to make up. Also want to give a thank you, send a shout out and a thank you to Secretary Arne Duncan. Secretary Duncan, as you know, is the Secretary of Education for the United States of America. He was one of President Obama's first cabinet secretaries, and so he's been with the president throughout his term, throughout his tenure. He announced recently that he's going to be resigning, and I'm sure he's got big things in his future. He was a great secretary and did a great job with the Department of Education. He's going to be moving on, and he's named as his successor a friend of the Urban League, Mr. John King. And John was his Deputy Education Secretary. John's been very involved with the Urban League, even serving on a panel discussion we had recently, our last congressional briefing on education. John was one of our panelists. And so, John, we welcome you, and we look forward to working with you, and we wish you the best of luck. A few other notables about this week's update. We've got a great story there about something that is very alarming that is happening in the state of Alabama. Just recently, we were very shocked to learn that the state of Alabama is going to close down, it looks like, at least 31 Department of Motor Vehicle locations, and most of these, if not all of them, are located in the Black Belt of Alabama in very poor and underserved rural areas, as well as majority African American areas. And so why should we care? Why do we care at the Urban League? Because remember, when people get ready to vote, you have to show voter ID. You have to show an identification. And so if people don't have the access to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get a permit or a driver's license or just an identification card, it could lead to some voter suppression and to some terrible, disastrous results as we get ready for these upcoming elections. And so the National Urban League, along with many of our brothers and sisters and some of the other organizations, are going to be watching the developments in Alabama. But take a look at our write-up on it in this week's update and see what you can do to help with that situation down there in Alabama. And in closing, I want to just thank a friend and a colleague of ours, Mr. Eldridge Allen. Eldridge runs the Entrepreneurship Center here at the Greater Washington Urban League, so not far from here. He and his team have been very, very helpful to us in a lot of ways. They're a very, very big part of the community here, helping small businesses every day get the advice, the counseling, the capital they need to survive. But we had a small business panel, roundtable discussion here in our office today, and Eldridge and his team did a phenomenal job of helping us get prepared for that. We have some more about that panel and some of the things and insights we learned from that panel in our update as well. And so please take a look at that as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this week's update. Have a great week. Thanks for what you do in and for the movement. I'll see you next week.